How you doing? Hey, how you doing? Martin Lopez from the Curiosity Theory, and we are going to have an awesome show today. We have a special guest who is actually right here. Which side? How do I point? That way. You got to, because it's everything's reversed, so you got to point backwards. So you're really that way, but I got to point that way. My buddy Danny Levin. How you doing, Danny?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. The first time we tried this, and it was like about 3 years ago. We tried to do a Facebook Live together. Remember?
Maybe even more. We were in the
like,
same location. And it was like,
it was an explosion. So we're waiting for Adriana to come on, and she'll be on in a minute. But in the meantime, Danny, why don't you take a couple minutes and introduce yourself, tell people what you're all about, and about your book and all that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My book, and I just happen to have it right here, is The Mosaic.
Nice.
And so, you can see, I'm not a young man anymore. Young inside, but on the outside, I'm starting to get a little bit older in years. And I had this thought: how can I leave something as a legacy? How can I leave something for people that might, share, where I might be able to share some of the few little things that I've stumbled on and learned. And I started to write an entirely different book. I was writing a book called V2, How to Start the Second Part of Your Life When the First Part of Your Life Ends. And how to use that second part of your life, version 2 of your life, how to do it. And as I wrote, I just was having things disappear. And I went to someone who became a muse of mine, and I sent it to her, and I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "This is absolutely, your concepts are fabulous. And they're fresh. They're not new ideas, because nobody has a new idea, but the concepts are fresh and spectacular. But it's not your book." And I went, "Hold it, what do you mean? Like, do you think I plagiarized the book? Like, what do you think?" She said, No, you didn't plagiarize it. It's just, you're a storyteller. You were at Hay House all those years. For 10 years, you were at Hay House and you helped them grow. And that's a self-help company. So I can see why you wanted to write a self-help book, because that's what you're used to. But you are not somebody who wants to be a teacher. You want stories to teach. And so I said, "Well, what would you write?" And she said, "I think you should try and write a fable." And I said, "So as a legacy, to leave as my legacy, you want me to write a fable?" And I fought her for about a minute and a half. I said, "That's the most preposterous thing I ever heard. You can't
work for Disney."
I mean, what do I look like? I'm 8 years old. I mean, I can't write a fable like that.
Once upon a time.
And I don't even know how to do it. Like, how in the hell would I do that? And so she said, "Just try it." And about a minute and a half into it, something hit me. And I thought, wow, what really affects people, what I've seen, is not, people don't want to be taught. They want to share stories. And when we share stories, what we realize is we are more similar than we think, because in sharing my story with you, it resonates something within you. And when I listen to your story, I get to know you on a deeper level, and something in your story resonates with me. And I might not hear it exactly the way you mean me to say it, but what I hear allows me to live, and allows me to grow, and allows me to see who you are, and connects us. Yeah. And so this is the funny part of it. And then I'm going to shut up. This is the funny part of it. Given my druthers, I would be in a cave in the Himalayas. That's really all I want to do. I want to sit. I'm at that stage in my life where I've done my life. I just want to sit now in contemplation, meditation. I am the least likely person in the whole world to write a book on connection.
I know you said that the other day. I was at the beach and you were at home and we were talking and you were saying, "Yeah, I'm the least likely person to write a book on connection." But but you're so connected, and when I talk to you, you always just connect with like whatever's going on with me. I called to talk to you about something, and you ended up talking about the exact same thing I was calling to talk to you about. I didn't even tell you that.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. That's, those are the miraculous things that happen when we connect with each other, that something happens that we both don't even know is happening, right?
Oh yeah. We're the worst judges of our own selves, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's almost like if we could take this part of our brain out, and we do that through meditation. I know I do. If we could take this part of our brain out that opines about ourselves, and that, that part. It just seems to be there seems to be such a negative constant that says, you're too fat, you're too ugly, you're not tall enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not smart enough, you don't make enough money, your house isn't big enough. All those kind of things we see on television, and I would imagine this was a problem before television too. What do you think?
100%. I mean, human nature is, and it's the first step of the mosaic. In fact, one of the movements I want to create is the Be Kind to You movement.
I love that.
And I'm creating these little bracelets. And I'm not the first person to do it. Obviously, these rubber bracelets have been around forever. But a guy in a Unity minister realized that he was being critical all the time. And so he wrote complaint-free world, and he put it on his bracelet. And he did a 21-day challenge. And this is what I'm going to do with the Be Kind to You challenge. I'm going to have Be Kind to You, and you start out by putting the bracelet on your left wrist. And you try and go for 21 days, just practicing kindness to ourselves, not being hard on ourselves, not putting ourselves down, not saying we're too fat, not saying we're too ugly, not saying we don't have enough money, not saying we're not good enough. And as soon as we catch ourselves thinking the thought or saying the words, you take your bracelet off the left hand and you put it on your right hand and you start over. And the goal is to get to 21 days without being critical of yourself or knocking down yourself, and being kind to yourself. And when you do that, everything in the world starts to change. Because when I'm hard on myself, okay, just let me perfect picture.
Yeah.
When I attack myself that many times, this is literally what's happening.
Yeah.
And my defense mechanism is about this far away from my body, because I don't know that I'm going to hit myself in the face all the time. I might hit myself in the groin. I might hit myself in the stomach. I might hit myself in the ankles. So I have to build a wall around me that's this close to me to protect myself from my own assault, not from yours.
From our own stuff, right?
From my own assault.
And then we blame other people for what they say.
Yeah, because we're in so much, but there's a reason to why we do that. And it gets to the topics we want to talk about. Part of the reason why we want to do that is because we've been hurt so many times that we want to protect ourselves from being hurt. It's completely understandable. I know that's what I do. Yeah. I want to protect myself because I'm scared when I become vulnerable, you might hurt me. And when I'm out there and I put my heart out and I give myself to you and I'm just open and you say something that hurts me, then that goes into the core of my being. But behind my wall, you can't hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I suffocate myself and I hurt myself all the time. And so when I become vulnerable, what happens is this attack ceases. And suddenly the world that is now blocked 6 inches from my face or 2 inches from my face or my body, now suddenly it's like seeing that picture behind you. I see everything. I see this beautiful, field and houses and trees and gardens. And I may be scared when I come to you, because I may think, okay, now I got to defend myself to you. But I already know that kindness is what drops those walls. So if I can start to practice kindness with you, just like I did with myself, maybe I can take down that wall too. And you and I can say, okay, we can keep the other 3 walls up, but this one wall between you and me, we don't need it anymore because we're going to be kind to each other.
Yeah. And then we expand that, and then we can then add other people into it. And we can
1,000,000%. And that's what the mosaic is. It's that connection of kindness, one to ourselves first, to source second, to purpose, to knowing why we're being kind. What's the purpose of our kindness? There's some people that are just kind for no reason at all. Yeah. They just want people to like them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating a relationship with ourselves. I love that. Matthew Leland says, be kind, practice awesome. Well, we're going to have those bracelets available. So I'm sure people will find a way to get them, and then we'll just put them on and we'll do it. So, but that's the thing that starts to make the world different. Yeah. It starts right here. When this becomes different, this becomes different. Yeah. At least that's my thought.
I think that's great, and so we want to do is we want to tie it into what we do, and then bring it into leadership and bring it into the world of business. Let me get rid of our faces. Let me get rid of this stuff so that we can see our faces right there. So what the topic was is for this morning, and hopefully Adriana, I know she's trying to get on right now, is what does it take to be a great leader? So why don't we take a couple minutes and talk about that? I'll kind of say something about it, and then maybe you say your what you have to say about that, and then we'll move on. We have 3 topics. Is that
Great.
cool?
I love it.
So if we say great leader, I think what we're doing is we're saying a person that you could follow. To me, when I look at a leader, I look at somebody that I would want to model myself after, or somebody that I want to get some of those traits that person is. Maybe they're courageous, maybe they're incredibly generous, maybe they're thoughtful, maybe they're intelligent. In the curiosity theory, we call it a winning formula, and there's these winning formulas are how we operate, how we win through life. And they're good, and then sometimes they don't work. So just being courageous all the time isn't necessarily a formula to always win. Sometimes there's other things other than courage, or other than intelligence, or other than all those kind of things. And I think a good leader, in my opinion, has the ability to be nimble, to be able to be curious, and be able to see when their winning formula or their traits apply, and where they're effective, and then when they're not effective for ourselves, and not effective for other people.
I love what you've done, Martin, because that curiosity theory that you have created, to me, is the essence of great leadership. When a leader becomes curious about the nature of what what it is they're even trying to lead,
Mm-hmm.
and about the people that are involved in making what you're trying to lead happen, that's what makes a great leader. For me, and this is going to sound maybe a little counterintuitive, but for me, it's completely intuitive. Leadership doesn't start with my ability to lead another person. Leadership starts with my ability to lead all the citizens of my own being, all the cells of my body, and to align all of the molecules, all of the thoughts, all of the actions of this human being here. When I have walls around me, like we were talking about before, when I am scared, how much leading can I do? I'm really just spending my time protecting myself like a boxer. I'm just spending my time protecting. I can't even go onto my attack.
Yeah.
But when I have control, not control, I really want to say when I'm in flow really with what is happening inside of me. There's no control there. We want to call it control because I'm scared to death to be in flow, right? Because where's it going to take me, right?
Yeah.
Right? But when I allow flow to come in, and when I allow myself to align with something that's happening to me, with me, for me, then I become a miraculous leader by surrendering to that flow that flows through me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. As a former sax player, and I think one day I'll pick up the sax and start playing jazz again.
I want to be you. I want to play sax.
I only have one, so we'll have to share. So, when you're playing in a band, there's that flow, there's that interaction, there's that giving and taking, and not stepping over people, and then knowing when it's time for you to shine and when it's time to let somebody else shine. And there's I call it like being in the groove. And like you said, it is scary because when as a sax player, as a jazz sax player, when I know when that solo is coming. I know when that's happening. I know, like, I can play the melody. I'm jamming on the melody. I'm like, I'm feeling good. Everybody knows the melody. But then when it's time for your solo, it's like boom, and like almost everybody in the band, they kind of like hit back and they go, "All right, brother, let's see what you got."
Yeah, all right, exactly.
They're supporting you, but they're also saying, "All right, man, take it away." And there's a and
kick it, right?
Kick it, yeah, kick it, and it's like you're hyper focused. It's like life or death. And even though there's not a saber-tooth tiger coming at you, or a bear coming to kill you or something, or like life or death is not on the line, it sure feels like life or death. It is. It has all the qualities of that. And as a leader, there are times that we have to make decisions. We have to make decisions. And you have coached leaders, you've coached CEOs, you know, a lot of people. And some of you have worked with some of the with actually I would even say some of you've worked with the top thought leaders in the on this planet for a long time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I have.
And to think that people aren't scared is no, it's
Every one of them speaks the same way you speak. All of us are the same. But here's a concept that I would love to invite you to consider.
thank you. Yeah, I'm open.
Here's if you look at birds that fly in the sky, they fly in a swarm. There is no leader. It looks like the one that's in front is the
Mm-hmm.
one that's leading it, but all of them are somehow in sync with each other. If you
Mm.
look at the way fish swim through the water, they swim in a swarm. There is something that's called swarm intelligence that humans are probably are the only animals that do not follow swarm intelligence because we have so much ego. We think we are the ones that have to do it. But when we enter into swarm, and there's a company called AI Intelligence that's out there,
Mm-hmm.
and they've predicted. Someone said to them, "Oh, if you guys are so good and you think you're so cool, let's see if you can do this. Let's see if you can predict the winner, not only the winners of the Kentucky Derby, but the first, second, and third place winners." And they said, "Okay, we're going to bring together 60 horse race enthusiasts, not even professionals, just people who like horse racing. And we're going to put them in a virtual room and we're going to put a puck in the middle. And through their mouse, we're going to have them draw. Hey, here she is.
Okay,
We're going to have them. We're going to have them.
I'm listening, guys.
Okay. We're going to have them put their thought into who they think is going to win. You know, within a short period of time, those 60 people together as a swarm picked the first, second, and third place winner. Now, here's what's the interesting thing. None of them individually got the right answers. None of them, only one of them picked who was going to come in third.
It was the collective answer.
It was the collective answer of all of them together moving this swarm into what the answer was, but none of them had the right. It wasn't like all of them thought number one, and that's why the puck went there. They sort of just moved together as a swarm to get there. And part of the way that I want to create leadership, to me, that's mosaic. Mosaic isn't a vertical relationship anymore, where one person tells the others what to do, but that we come together as a mosaic, as pieces in a mosaic. And we come together to create the artistry that is all of us together. And in the collected knowledge of all of us together, in the connected mosaic consciousness, we come up with solutions that we can never find individually.
Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely.
Hey, Adriana.
How you doing, Adriana?
You
got to move your camera down. We can't see you. We only see the wall behind you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Now the camera go down like this. Because you're like,
Hold on.
You're like peeking into the room.
there you go. We're getting closer. There you go. Hey,
wait. You know what? I'm using my phone because my computer just
there you go.
wasn't.
There you go. Now we got you.
So can you see?
I felt like I was in Disneyland there for a minute, going woo.
Mr. Toad's
Sorry.
Wild Ride. Well, we're glad you're here. So we were talking about our what we call a leader. So like defining leader. So how would you define it?
I was listening into both of you. I love what Danny's saying about leadership is about just understanding how, being mosaic and everybody has a piece of everything. And then you were also talking about being in the flow and all that good stuff. So leadership, it's such a broad subject, but leadership for me is about leading yourself first. If you can't lead yourself first, then you really can't lead anybody else. And you also mentioned, Danny, that you have to lead every cell in your body. I love that. I absolutely love that. And you have to pay attention to how you're being in your body, and you first. It starts with you, and then you can, lead others. And of course, always going back to intention. What's your intention behind you wanting to lead others? And what I have found in leadership roles, it's sometimes you end up being a leader without really wanting to be a leader. And I I know that that always happens when you are being, it's who you're being in the moment.
Yeah.
And, it happens. If you're a leader, you will be a leader, whether you like it or not. And if you're a good leader, then, you will know what your intentions are. But I agree with what both of you guys have said, which is it begins with you. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So we have three points we want to go over, and the 3 points are, let me go to my other page here. Where's the other page? So we had talked about three things, and the first one was, how to have a heart-centered approach when conducting business. That's the first one. The second one is letting go of wanting to be right, and the third one is how to create harmony in the workplace. So how we're gonna do this is, Adriana, why don't you take the first one, how to have a heart-centered approach when conducting business, and then and we'll go from there. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Let me see.
So when I write about having a heart-centered approach and being heart-centered, especially when I'm doing a seminar and it's for a corporation,
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. Most people in corporate America don't want to hear about heart or about being soft or about loving your employees. People are not there yet. So this is the reason why it's important for people like us to come forward and have these conversations, have the conversations about it is time that we start talking about implementing heart and having a heart-centered approach to anything that you do in life. And I think for most people, they're comfortable with having a heart-centered approach when it comes to their families, great. But then when it comes to the world or the corporate world, especially when you're at work, it just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So having a heart-centered approach in conducting business in a heart-centered way, it starts with assuring that you are doing business for the right reasons with the right intention. So really, what's your intention, for example, for wanting to help a customer? Is it because you want to make the deal, you want to make the money, or is it because you really want to help this individual? So the first three things that I want to share with you guys is, one is intention. What's your intention behind wanting to cut the deal or wanting to work for the company? And then the second thing is, so let's just name that redirecting awareness, right?
So intention and redirecting awareness.
Redirecting awareness, because, and it depends what phase you're on with your corporate career, and this could also relate to your family as well. So redirecting awareness is saying, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why am I with this company? Am I passionate about being with this company? Am I doing this because I really want to love people? So and give back and be of service, as all great leaders do. So here's where you start. You start with becoming aware, but then you also say, well, how can I be heart-centered when I conduct business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you do that, you can do that through different ways. Danny said you have to pay attention to every cell in your body. And another way to do it is pay attention to your breathing. So now we're going into technique. Okay, let's, in basic terms, this is something that we teach at Heart Math Institute, is just pay attention to your breathing. Because even now, I'm trying to get into the camera and I'm like, oh man, I can't get the link. What's going on?
Yeah,
I'm like
the
so
panic mode.
frustrated.
Yeah.
Because last night I was selling Martin the pictures, and I was, look, my studio's all set up. It's going to be great, And I get on this morning, and I'm like, it's not working. So you just have to go with the flow, right? You have
Figure
to
it out.
go. You have to go with the flow, like Danny said. Just be in it, and then be present. And then this one technique that I've learned that really helped me just throughout my entire 20 years of being in the corporate world is breathe. Just breathe. Let's just breathe, right? Pay attention to your breathing. And then the pace that you do the breath, right? So if you take a moment, I've seen Danny do this when he does the meditations, is just being aware of your breathing. And it's such an easy technique to just bring you back to just being present in this moment. And, let's be real, it's not happening in the corporate world. There's so much stress and tension at work. If depending on what kind of career you have, you could be working in a cubicle, or you could be working out, hustling and bustling out doing sales. It goes back to your breath. And then the third thing is, I'm a huge advocate of having a growth mindset, where you have to keep learning, you have to keep understanding. And so here's the key. The key is that if you don't have a growth mindset and are continuing to learn, you will be stuck where you're at. And then right now, the research on how the heart works and how there's, the electromagnetic field around the heart, pretty much, the heart is the master controller. So your electromagnetic field around the heart is touching and influence everything around you. And we have so much data on the heart and how it works that it behooves everyone to understand how the muscle works and how that can actually help you live a more productive life, be a better leader, be a better parent, be a better, colleague. So those are the three key things, redirecting awareness, using techniques, whether it's, the breathing technique or a lot of the techniques that I've seen Danny use with meditation. I know, Martin, you also do a lot of meditation as well. And whatever technique works for you. And then the third is keep learning, especially learn about how the heart works, in your body. And that once you understand that, I mean, it will revolutionize the way that you see the world. And so those are my three things.
I can't hear you, Martin.
I have planes flying over, so sometimes I have to mute myself. So, I'll take a stab at it, and then how about and then you, Danny, take a stab. So, how to have a heart-centered approach when conducting business. I love what you said about the intention and redirecting awareness. For me, in the curiosity theory is have a curious mindset. Be curious. Watch what's happening inside of yourself. Like what's going on inside of yourself. Be curious. What are you observing? Where are you making what you're seeing mean something? Because there's facts. There could be, the woman's crossing the road and she's pulling on the kid, and somebody may say, well, she's just a mean mom, or somebody else might say that's a bad kid. He doesn't pay attention. So we're all going to have stories. We're all going to build stories from our perspective. So having an awareness of what we observe and what stories we're making about it, and then what that triggers inside of ourselves, where it's a need that we have, maybe a need to protect or a need to be a good mom or a good parent. And then what's the feeling around that? If we don't see a child behaving well and we're trying to be a good parent, the feeling may be, that's not a very good feeling. We call them yum or yuck. We start off with yum or yuck, so that might be a yuck feeling. As a leader, if our maybe our sales team isn't producing at the level that we want, then we may be making stories about the person doesn't really want to work, the person's lazy. The stories are endless. Those stories then trigger our emotions and trigger our needs to make money, our needs to be a great company, our needs to be the best, all those. And then we have a feeling around that, a yum or yuck. So how to have a heart-centered approach when conducting business, I believe, is the understanding of and the awareness, like you had said, of what's going on inside of us and how are we projecting that onto other people, and how can we then empower people.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous. I'm in agreement with everything everybody said, and I want to tilt it a little bit.
That's what I love about you. That's what I love about you.
Danny.
That's right. You can say 2 + 2 = 4, and then Danny's going to go, but if you take the paper and look at it this way,
22.
Go for it.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Let's tilt this thing.
Let's tilt this baby.
So what I love about, Martin, your curiosity theory is that when I become curious about where my energy is even coming from, even as I start to talk, you can hear where people are coming from, even just through their voice, where the placement of their voice comes. You can hear if my voice is in my heart, or if my voice is in my throat, or if my voice is up, in my head. And when we are in control of ourselves, there is a beautiful concept that I want to bring into this world. And years ago, nobody knew what mindfulness was. And John Kabat-Zinn brought in the term mindfulness as one of the people who he probably popularized it. I don't think he was because he said, wherever you go, there you are. So just start to be mindful. One of the things we're working on is getting out of our mind. Awareness is a beautiful thing. But what I would really like to encourage people to try is heartfulness. And how do you walk into a situation and just come with your heart? How do you love a situation? How do you love the things that are happening to you? How do you see the beauty in an appreciation for everything that is going on, rather than the thought that I have to control it or fix it or change it or motivate it? How about if we were just to say, Tony Robbins has an amazing statement. He says, what if life was happening for you rather than to you? How would that shift everything? So how do we have a heart-centered approach when conducting business? When we think about what we were talking about prior, when Adriana was trying to get on, how do I have a heart-centered approach if I am in fear that you're going to hurt my heart? And if I'm standing behind the walls that I've put up to protect me from being hurt, I can't have a heart-centered approach. I may have it, but it's going to go all of about 2 inches and ricochet back to me. And my pain is going to keep me from having a heart-centered approach. I'm not going to be able to do it. So until I can clean this, and in the mosaic, I call him the gardener. Until I can pull that weed from my garden, we all have those weeds in our garden. That one that when we go and weed our garden and we pull it and that clump just stays there and it breaks off in our hands. But the weed, it doesn't come out. We know we don't have the roots, but we're in too much of a hurry to dig it out. So we just take that weed and move on. And every single time we water our garden, the beauty of the flowers grow and that weed's roots go deeper and deeper and deeper. And every time we water it and we see it in somebody else, we criticize it because we think that we have that weed in ours and we can't get it out. When we can get that weed out of ourselves, when we can bring down that wall that I put around myself that protects me from being hurt, it's only then that I can be heart-centered. And then at that point, my destination has to be that my goal in life is to touch your heart. My goal in life is to uplift you, to love you, to support you, to honor you, to respect you, to give you all that you ever wanted in terms of love and acceptance. What I found in my travels in my life, and I'm getting to be an old man now, is that every single person, bar none, no matter how much money they have, how successful they are, how poor they are, whether they live in a mansion or on the street, every single one of them wants two things. They want to be loved and accepted. True. And when we can love and accept another human being, imagine in our workplace, when you feel loved and accepted, I'll do anything for you. You don't have to coax me or lead me or grab me by the nose and pull me. You just have to love and accept me. When I feel loved and accepted, I will cross deserts for you, climb mountains for you, cross rivers for you, because that's how much that means to me. So to have a heart-centered approach in leadership is really to come from our heart. We're so much more comfortable in our head. It's so easy to tell the theories of why we want to live in our heart rather than just experience that love. And when we're curious, again, Martine, I love what this stuff. When we become curious about what it would be like to come from our heart rather than our head, just go into that exploration. From a mosaic point of view, when I come from my heart, I start to connect to the hearts of others, because that's the place where my connection is. When I come from my head, I start to connect to the heads of others. And so what I want to do is I want to create heart-centered connections. So that means I have to come from my heart. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I love you. I love the way that you pivot, you shifted that and painted that. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Love it.
So Adriana, why don't you wrap up the first topic? So how to have a heart-centered approach when conducting business. How would you put all the things that we all said and just wrap it up in a minute?
So I think the three of us have a really good handle and grasp of what it is that we need to do, first of all, personally, to be great leaders. And then you can, it's so important right now, especially with the climate in the United States, that we do come back home, and then we do come back to this place that will allow us to be able to be the bridge to people. There's so many people out there that are feeling alone, or not feeling accepted, or not feeling loved, and
Mm.
we as leaders need to carry, not well yeah I'll carry that responsibility to be brave enough to love people through it, to love people into our lives. And that approach can clearly be seen at home, but why don't we pivot and shift that to the workplace as well? And ultimately, the work that I do, that Danny does, and then Martin does, we do that. We give people a space to be able to reflect on these topics and say, oh yes, I can live this way in all areas in my life. So I think everybody wrapped it up beautifully. And absolutely, I think we all have different techniques that we use to get people to be heart centered. At the end of the day, it is about loving people. And I am open about it in the corporate world, as hard as it is for some people to accept. Even when I was in the corporate world, I would tell my employees that I love them. And with the climate now, it's like scary, right? Because of everything that's going on. But I have no fear. You have to be brave to love people. You have to be brave, and I think that we all do it in our different ways. So we're all on key. We're all on point. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Let's go on to our next topic, which is, I think it's actually perfect for what we're saying right now, is letting go of wanting to be right. So let me kind of start that one, and then we'll have Danny talk about it, then Adriana, and then I'll wrap it up. So letting go of wanting to be right for me, I would say, is we all just got done saying something. We all had three ideas about how to have a heart-centered approach, and Rashid, he added something there, and I believe that Matthew Cox added something, and Ross Jeffries, and we all had something to say about that. Like human beings, we all have something to say about what's going on in the world. Like I was saying earlier, we see, we observe, and we make an opinion about it, and we make it mean something. And I think as human beings, we spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of our lives like coming up with like how we think the world works. Like how do we think that the planet works and why things happen the way they do? Like if you said this, then you mean this. If my boss said this to me, then this is what he meant. And then we use our experience to decide if it's a positive or a negative. And we want to be right about that. Like we want to be so right about that because we've worked so hard to come up with these conclusions. And it really makes sense that, when my boss calls me for a meeting, there's something bad going to happen. Or when my wife says, can we talk? I'm like, oh, I mean, I've had enough people say that to me that I know that's danger, like I'm going to be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. The ability to let that go, the ability to get, in the mortgage business, right? So the ability for me to have a conversation with a client across the way, whether it's somebody thinking about buying a house and wants to get pre-approved for a loan, or it's a real estate agent looking for advice about something or giving me advice, my ability to let go of being right, of that desire to be right, affects the conversation profoundly. And the curiosity theory that's where the curiosity theory lives and breathes, in that area. What do you got to say, Danny?
Isn't life spectacular? Like you and Adriana created these categories, and I you asked if they were okay with me. I just said whatever you create is fine and it's perfect. If you were to go to the back of the mosaic, you would see the 4 practices that I say there. The first one is be kind to yourself, which I think we already talked about in the heart-centered approach. Okay. The second one is be vulnerable. And really, when you let go of needing to be right, that's the practice of vulnerability. When I'm kind to myself and I let down those walls that we were talking about, and I actually allow the world to come in. Look, in the world we live in today, we are siloed in like-minded communities, which sounded like a great idea. We were all looking for like-minded communities, people that believe like us, so that we can feel a part of something, that we can connect. Those silos, though, have gaps and distances between them that are growing and growing and growing. And they are literally keeping us from becoming one united states for our country, one united world for the world around us. And so one of the things that I want to create through the Mosaic community is a community of like and unlike minds.
Like and unlike minds. I love that.
Yeah, because it's not
Great.
not the like minds that give us our resilience. I believe in a world where everything is possible. The only reason I can't see how to make something possible is I just don't see the way to do it yet. As long as I stay with like-minded people, I'll always see what I see. But when I start to listen and be open to the fact that other people might be right, other people, or there may be 2 rights, there might be 100 rights. When we look at the same situation from different perspectives, everybody's right. But it's the beauty of those perspectives that allows me to see a new way of seeing the world. And in that new way of seeing, it becomes possible then that something that I never saw before, which holds what I want as an impossibility, suddenly I see now, and it's a way to make that possible. How exquisite is that? When we let go of our need to we know what we believe. Who cares? How fabulous it is to hear what other people believe, to get other people's opinions, to do what we're doing here, where each one of us is saying beautiful truths and affecting each other and affecting the people that watch in a way that they get to resonate with whatever it is they resonate with. And I would invite them to see how they can resonate with the things they don't resonate with as well. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to hold them as your belief systems. But again, if I talk about, when I said everybody in the world wants to be loved and accepted, the other thing really that's a part of that is when you say something to me and I acknowledge that I've heard you and I validate what you say, and I say to you, I might not believe like you believe, but thank you for sharing your belief with me. I don't believe we're going to get into fights. I don't believe you're going to blow up my buildings. I don't believe you're going to destroy my corporation or the company that I'm involved with, because you and I have connected. Even though I don't agree with you, I have my right to believe like I believe, just like you have your right to believe like you believe. But when we let go of thinking that our way is the right way, what would that do to religion, for God's sake? What would that do to politics? What would that do to the way we raise our kids? What would that do to the way we are with our spouses? Oh my God, right?
The revolution.
It's a revolution. And all happens is because we become vulnerable and allow people in without trying to change them. What would happen if pardon me for being so narcissistic, what would happen if in a mosaic, it didn't matter if you were big or small, broken or whole? Because when we put all of those pieces together, we become something so exquisite. We're way bigger than each individual piece. So what would happen if we lived our life that way, where we included everybody in? That's the dream I have in the mosaic. As always, I talk too much. Sorry.
I love that.
Great job.
I love that we're way bigger than the individual piece. I love that statement. I got married 5 years ago, so my husband says that I'm always right. So I don't know
He's
about
a good
you guys.
husband.
No, I always love what I learned from Tony Robbins 20 years ago when he said, "Do you want to be right or do you want to be in love?"
Mm.
And that always stuck with me. I'm like, do I want to be right or do I want to be loved? And I'd never been married up until 5 years ago. And I really implemented that because I realized that probably 50% of the time I'm constantly asking myself, do I want to be right or do I want to be in love? And then I always go back to this question for myself is, am I in a state of being loving right now, this moment? Am I being loving? And if I ask myself that question, then it answers everything else. And so, I'll keep it simple. That's all I have to say about that. It is that, do I want to be right or do I want to be in love? And in this moment, am I being loving?
And how would you put that in business? How would you add that into leadership?
Well, in business, that's the same question I ask, depending on, I always relate things to when I was in the corporate world, but just in general, for example, is this still going to work out for that person as well? And am I doing this from a place that is where it's going to benefit the other person? Because when we're of service to other people, that's also an act of being a loving, kind human being, right?
Yeah.
And these are philosophies that just, even the language is not used in the corporate world. It just isn't. People are too afraid. So as it pertains to leadership in business, absolutely. I ask myself those questions. Do I love my team? Absolutely. There was some teams that I used to lead, and I loved them. They loved me. They love working for me. I love working for them, and it's a good place to be. It's a good space. So
Good. Nice. Well, wonderful. I love the different approaches, which was, you, Danny, you started off with talking about silos and what I liked is, like and unlike minds is, letting go of being right is people that don't have the same opinion can still state their opinion and it can be left there. I think so often, I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not anybody else. There's a helicopter going over, so I hope it's not too loud.
We can't hear it.
So often I have felt or I have opined or I have thought that if I listened to somebody, and I didn't interrupt them and I didn't give them my opinion, I was agreeing with what they were saying.
Mm.
And it took me time to figure that out, that I'm listening to you and that doesn't mean I'm agreeing with you, but you deserve the dignity of being heard. People deserve the dignity of being heard. Now, that's a personal opinion. That's me saying people deserve it. That's the way I live my life. Other people may not live their life that way. And that's the value of the curiosity theory, because I can say this is what's right for me, that people deserve the dignity of being heard. Somebody else may not have or subscribe to that, and that's fine. And if I'm right, if I'm being right, then what I just said was people deserve, and then I then live my life as though that's the truth. And what Danny said was, people can have like and unlike minds at the same time, and I thought that was really profound. And I think that's how that shows up for me. It gives us the opportunity that we could listen to Ford and we can listen to Kavanaugh, and then we can just listen to them. And then if we want to make an opinion, we can make an opinion.
And no, I mean, yeah, and then we were talking about it last time. It's there's no judgment. I just feel for both of them, that they're going through this process that that is happening right before the entire country, and it's my heart goes out to them, both of them. And
I think
we all have our personal opinions.
Absolutely.
However, it
I believe we all feel for both of them, but the feeling could be and the feeling could be, hey, right on. So we have feelings, and those feelings then drive whether we're right or wrong, or how we're gonna manage ourselves being right. We want to be right. So I want to be right about women's issues, so I'm going to follow this way. I want to be right about the conservative agenda, so I'm going to follow it this way. And then we look for evidence, and then and we do that in business, where we're looking and saying, this person doesn't really want to work, and I'm looking to replace the person, so I'm going to find evidence at how I'm going to fire somebody. Versus being having that like just like Danny said, like and unlike, integrate both things. And I love what you said is, I don't want to be right. I want to be loved. So that's that's very, very profound. Very, very profound.
Yeah. And keeping it simple, I think, works. And this, Danny, what you said, we're bigger than each individual, and I think that when we look at the world that way, it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me at a heart level. So it shifts your world for you if you really understand it deeply. So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
If I can say one last thing, just and it's another tilt. Okay, this isn't about Ford and this isn't about Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
This is about us.
Yes.
Reflection.
This is about
Yep.
me.
Mm-hmm.
This is about the lack of harmony that I have within myself.
Yeah.
The lack of knowing what my purpose is, the lack of knowing my own morality, the lack of knowing my own direction. This isn't a judgment on anybody else. This isn't a being hard on myself. This is a call to action for me. Remember to lead the cells of my body,
Mm-hmm.
so that my actions, when I look back 40 years on my life, oh my God, I could be called on the carpet for so many things in a court of law.
It's a good thing I'm not running for a senator.
Right? And so
that's a different show, Danny.
Right, totally.
I feel the first FBI investigation.
And when I look into the hearts of women that have been abused, I feel so much pain, and I feel so much pain from not only my own abuse unconsciously of them in the times of my life, but my own lack of understanding and the ability to feel that we're connected as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and the respect and dignity that every human being deserves.
Mm.
And so when I look at the situation that played itself out on national television, like a riveting movie, I don't see two people. I see our nation. I see our world.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it's time for us to really become clear in our own hearts, in our own souls, not of judging people, not of making their lives hell, but of getting clear in ourselves of, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way I want to treat people. This is the way I want to love another person. This is the way I want to respect another human being. It's not about the persona of the wall that I put around me that makes me look good to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the baby that's quivering behind that wall, scared to death that you'll see me.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out and saying, here I am. I'm scared that what you'll think when you see me. But here I am. I can't hide anymore. And it's time for us as a nation to come out of hiding and to just be ourselves, not with anger, not with hatred,
Mm-hmm.
but just to be our vulnerable, loving selves.
Yeah.
Awesome. The dog's barking. So let's move on to the third item, which is how to create harmony in the workplace. And take it away, Danny.
Fabulous. Okay. So in the Mosaic, I talk about 4 practices. One is be kind to yourself. The second is be vulnerable. We've already sort of touched on those. The third is do what you came to do, live purposefully. And the fourth is build your mosaic. So when we are kind to ourselves and we take down that wall, and when we are vulnerable and we let other people in, and we just like our categories today say, we allow other people to be right and allow other people's opinions to affect us, then we start to integrate. How do we live a purposeful life? Like, what is the purpose of what we're doing here? It's not only what I came to do, but what's the purpose behind what I came to do? And I'm going to give you a very clear, personal, vulnerable story from me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd pretty much given up a little while back because I had gotten so much pain that I had surrounded myself in my own little world, scared to death of being hurt again. And I shut down. Like, I'm a person that walks into a room and I light up a room. Normally, I just walk to the center of a room. I light up a room. I found I was walking into a room and sort of quivering over to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that's just not me. How do I do that? And this is true in my business too. I wasn't going out to do things. I was just surrounding myself with myself. And yes, a long time ago in the album Fragile said, don't surround yourself with yourself, move on back 2 squares. Right? And so I realized that's what I was doing. And the purpose of my life had been, how do I protect myself and be comfortable and do things for comfort? And I found the things that I were eating were comfort foods to make me comfortable. And so I wasn't concerned about being healthy or being, all I was concerned about is in this moment, how do I become more comfortable? Mm-hmm. And I had a heart scare, and people thought that my heart was not good. And I had, they sent me to this thing and it looked like I had angina. I had 8 of the 9 symptoms of angina. And they said, you better get to the doctor, get yourself tested. You have all these things going on. I went to the doctor. I did all the tests that have to happen. The doctor said to me, Danny, you have the heart of a 16-year-old. You're strong as an ox. You have nothing wrong with your heart. You're just overweight. And I was over 100 pounds overweight. Something clicked in me. I can't tell you what. It wasn't from outside, because everything I'm doing now, I knew to do before. I just never did it. But I created a new purpose. My purpose was, I'm going to eat the things that are good for me, not the things that make me feel good. And as soon as I did that, and it's illustrated sort of now in the way we're living life, right? We have GPS systems that we can put them in our car, and we just put them in. They tell us exactly where to go. Pretty soon we'll have self-driving cars. We'll get into our self-driving car. We'll put in our GPS. We'll sit back. We'll relax. Our chairs will massage us rather than drive us. Our window screens will be full of information. Social media, will be able to interact with people and play with people. It will be an effortless ride to where we're going. And I started to think, what would happen if life was an effortless ride? And what I realized is, I have to know what my destination is. I have to know what my purpose is. So in looking at this question of how do we create harmony in the workplace, we all know that creating a culture that we all believe in is right, but we don't hold true to that purpose. We speak it, we talk it, but we don't heart it. We don't feel it. And I would like to just say, what if some of the stories we are saying over and over again of this isn't how it works in the workplace, just our stories? What if they're not true? Maybe that's been what it's been like. But this moment is so new. Every cell that I breathe into my body right now is completely new. Mm-hmm. Everything that is happening right in this moment is completely new. So how do we create a harmony in a workplace? Is we have to know with every fiber in our being, that is our destination. That is the only place we're going. That is the only thing worth living. And as soon as I made the destination in my own health to say, I'm going to only eat these foods, I'm going to eat foods that are healthy for me, I gave up sugar, dairy, meat, fish, gluten, carbs. I gave up everything that was all, like, I can't believe I haven't had a pizza in 45 days. I can't believe I haven't sat with cookies. I can't believe all the things that
un-American.
It's un-American. I haven't had a burrito. I haven't had anything.
I'm burrito, that's eating, San Diegan.
I'm 100%. I'm like a weirdo, right? But the destination I made and the GPS system that takes me there no longer allows me to stop at those other locations because they're not on my road anymore. Mm-hmm. And so when we know that our destination is above all, we want harmony in our workplace, we will create a culture and we will draw people to ourselves that believe in that culture, that affiliate and align themselves with that culture, where there is nothing else possible but to have harmony in our workplace. Right. There is nothing else possible but to talk about love in our workplace. There is nothing more possible than just loving and caring for each other, because that's what drives our culture to actually be a culture that creates harmony. And so one of the things we have to do is disrupt all the old stories that we've lived by. We have to let go of the thought that we need to be right, just like Martin was talking about. We have to be curious about, how would it be if we saw it a different way? How would it be if we were kind to ourselves? How would it be if we were vulnerable? How would it be if we were purposeful? And then what kind of connections would we make? Without even creating these topics, you guys created for me the perfect platform to talk about the 4 practices of the mosaic. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But that's how universal these practices are.
Mm-hmm.
They affect every single thing. And maybe I've polluted it by just being too narcissistic and saying, though, bringing them in. But in every level of our life, if we do these simple practices, which are, maybe not so simple, they're simple to say, they're harder to live. But even that's a story.
It's true.
Right? How about if they were simple to do?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen? How could we not have harmony? If we did what the 3 of us have been talking about today, how would it be possible for us not to have harmony in our workplace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff.
I love it. Adriana, what's your take?
So I love that you're saying that you have to disrupt the stories, because that has been a new thing for me the last couple of years, where I've realized that a lot when I wrote the corporate code, it was about the stories that I had told myself happened to me. And so in writing the book, there was a lot of awareness that came to me. And then I realized, you're right. I agree with what you just said. What if those stories aren't true?
Yeah.
What if it wasn't, they were, my boss was, a jerk, or, he wasn't a very nice guy. What if I was the one that was a jerk? What if it was me? I wasn't in harmony with who I was as a person, and I couldn't see past the fact that I kept judging, my prior boss, and saying, I've got to leave the corporate world. I've got to, and this has all happened within the workplace. And when I got out of the corporate world and then realized, it wasn't him, it was me. I was mean because I didn't have compassion. I didn't trust him because I didn't trust myself. I didn't have the courage to go tell him, listen, this is the deal. This is how this is making me feel. And so it all comes back again to what all of us are saying is we have to come back to us. How are we being in this moment? And just, understanding that it really is about the story that you're telling yourself. So, for me, because I've always been a writer since I was a young woman, just the writing helps me clear things, declutter things. And the more that I take a step back, the more I realize that it starts with me. And then if something is happening outside, I look at it and I say, how am I responsible for this? Or why am I viewing it or seeing it this way? And, I have to be honest with you, it took me years to stop saying, my boss was a jerk. My boss was a jerk. It took me years because, he may have had his stuff, but I was the one who didn't have the compassion. I was the one who was not in a state in experiencing and being a loving human being.
Yeah.
And I'm brave enough to share it with you because that's something that is in my past, and that's something that got me to where I am now. And I've written about it, and I believe that it's, a story worth sharing, because it's a journey that I believe we all must take to get to a place where we are part of the bigger mosaic. We are part of being curious. We are part of experiencing the world as a collective, as opposed to someone that's just in the corner and, seeing the world and thinking that the world is full of fear and anger. And really, that's it's not what's happening out there. It's what's happening with us. And so I appreciate how you explained it. And for me personally, the workplace is a place where we can bring the love. Just a couple of days ago, I was listening to Brandon Bouchard, and he was talking about how he has a trigger every time he walks into a room or walks into a space where his trigger is if he walks into a door, and then the frame outside the door, he walks through it, he immediately says, bring the joy, just bring the joy. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I love that. That little technique would have helped me so much when I would walk into my office.
Brendan, where were you?
And so those things, we can talk about to be a certain way and have these certain have a moral compass, but it's how do we allow for people to enter into that space with, a lot of times people need the techniques. What's the technique? Okay, let's breathe, or let's walk into a door and say bring the joy, or let's change our language, or let's change the way that we tell the story. And I believe that's sometimes it's a skill, sometimes people just kind of they become awake to the awoken or awake to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's good stuff, you guys. Good stuff.
That's awesome. My take on how to create harmony. I was just contributed by both you guys, and I was actually thinking about a whole different kind of way of approaching it. But I stayed curious, listening to what you guys are saying, and I like what you said about the destination, and it starts with me, and it's what you had said, Danny, and then Adriana, about the whole thing about my boss is a jerk. And I wrote the curiosity theory and about 3 years ago, and I still argue with my wife over the same stupid stuff, and I still think that people are jerks, and I still think that blah 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 and all that, and I don't try to fool myself that, as far as personally, fool myself that I'm going to get to a destination of like that harmony where it's all I just don't think I'm going to get there, and nor do I have any. I don't really have an intention of getting there. Was talking about playing jazz earlier. Every time I pick up the sax, I've got to retune it. Every time I blow a note, I got to listen to see am I in tune or not. And if, let's say, the guitar player and the bass player, let's say they go a little flat, then I have to trust that the keyboard player is going to adjust, and then I have to adjust so that we are all in harmony. And work is like that, I believe. I think the workplace is like that where we don't always have good days. Sometimes we have rough days. And sometimes somebody needs tuning. Sometimes people need to be listened to a particular way. And I don't know if it's always love. It could be compassion. It could be other things. And ultimately, fundamentally, it's love. But we may not say that. We may say things like appreciation or acceptance or challenge or joy, or all these distinctions, all these human needs that we have. What I think I believe brings harmony in the workplace is curiosity. When we're curious, then we have the ability to possibly see through awareness what's going on. And then if the destination that we want to get to, if where we all want to get to, we're aligned, then as we go, as we kind of go off course, then we have each other to help bring us back into harmony, or maybe our team adjusts to us because we're having a bad day.
So it's my turn to close up.
You get to close up.
Love it. I am so taken by the power of our stories. And our stories unconsciously or consciously completely affect the reality that we live. I don't know if I created it or it's been there forever, but I'm working with something called the Change Blueprint. And I just wanted to leave people with one, because I love Adriana, you talk about, giving techniques. I want to just give one technique through this Change Blueprint that I think is really valuable. Our thoughts dictate our words. Our words create our stories. Mm-hmm. And our stories create our life. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was hired to brand a hotel with the most anticipated hotel opening of 2013. It was the Andaz Maui in obviously Hawaii. And I went there to work with them, and they said, Danny, we want you to tell our story. And I said, okay, great. Who do I sit with to sort of garnish that? So I get it. They said, no, you don't understand. We don't have a story. We want you to create this a brand new hotel. We're redoing this place that was here, and we want you to create a story. Well, I took their core values of their company and I created characters out of their core values. It's in a book that I wrote called The Ohana of Red Earth. And in that book, what we did is I said, why do people come here? And they said, well, Hawaii, Maui, they come to Wailea for love. So I said, I'm going to create a love story then, where people fall in love here on this island. And I'm going to use your core values. And one of the things I did is there was a guy that I created who was like what every guy dreams of being. He was the best surfer and the strongest warrior. And he was the one that was the greatest leader. And he was the one that all the women wanted to be with. And he was handsome and smart. And, he had all the qualities of what every other guy believes he wants to be or dreams of being. And I ended that story in the first draft of, and every night he went home to a different woman who loved him. And I sent that to him, and they said, Danny, we understand what you're saying, but that can't be the thing that we're doing at the hotel here. I mean, like that, you're gonna annihilate us with that story, right?
You're gonna be the swingers club or something.
Like, we can't do that. I mean, we hope that families will bring their kids here, and we can't.
Daddy, who's that going to your room?
And I said, okay, I completely understand. I was just trying something that just didn't work. I went onto my computer and I deleted 15 words. And I changed those 15 words to, and even though every night he could have gone home to a different woman, he went home to the one woman that was the woman he dreamed of all day long.
Wow.
That story, the whole context of the story changed. The whole feeling of the story changed. The whole place of the story changed. When I went there to train the people in the story, I said to them, let me tell you something, and I'm going to tell you very clearly, this is a completely made up story. There's no truth in this. I know no facts. There's nothing that I said that is true. And on the off chance that it could be, as I was walking one day on the beach, I heard these characters come to me and say, we want you to change the way you're writing it. And each character started to erase what I wrote, much like it happened in the Mosaic. I wrote, they erased. Until we got to the place where they were happy with the characters. And I have to say, in a little bit of my head, even though I know there's no truth to this story, suddenly I started to say, maybe there's truth to this story. So when I went there and trained them, I told them this story. I told them exactly what I've just told you.
Wow.
I said to them, on the off chance that there is truth in this story, and believe me, I'm telling you there's not, but on the off chance that these characters are real, on the off chance that this is reality, what would you prefer to be? Why would you prefer to be here? Because you're the best guest attendant, because you're the best hotel manager, because you're the best cook, because you're the best, entertainment person. Would you prefer to be here for that, which by the way you are, because this is the #1 rated hotel opening in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you prefer to be here because your ancestors who lived here on this property hundreds of years ago have found you from the four corners of the world and have brought you back here? That you are the ohana of this property. You are the family of this property.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And there was a big Samoan guy sitting in the back of the room. There were 350 people in the room. From the back corner of the room, he said, sort of under his breath, but just loud enough for the person next to him to hear, Ohana, 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 Ohana. Within moments, the room was reverberating. As people were saying, Ohana, Ohana, the lights started to flicker on and off. The doors burst open. Windows that were sealed shut opened. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know anymore what's true in this story or what's false. But the stories that we create have power, and you're seeing that power now. Mm-hmm. What would happen if the stories you thought were true were not true? What would happen if what you see, which is another principle of the mosaic, is not what is, it's just what you see? What would you see if you could see what you don't see? Change blueprint. Thoughts create our words. Words create our stories. Stories create our life. If you want to change any part of that equation, change any part of that equation. And you will have a different life. So in summarizing this topic, I would have us look at the stories that we tell, the words that we say, the thoughts that we have, and ask ourselves, is this the life that we want to live? Again, I talk way too much, but you know.
No, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that story. That's an amazing story.
Amazing story.
I was like just so in there with you in that moment. That's incredible. And
it shook me to the core.
I was with the Samoan guy in the back of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. I finished reading your book, The Mosaic, and then my 12-year-old happened to pick it up.
Wow.
And he just started reading it. He's all, Mom, I'm going to do my book reports on this. And I was like, you are? Wow. And so he has it. He's been reading it for the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
And, I just walked by him, and instead on the computer, he's reading The Mosaic, and he's talking about the stories. And I'm grateful for the book that you wrote, because it's so powerful. It's really powerful. And
if he would be open, I would love to see his book reports.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
he would
absolutely.
be open to send them. I would love to see them.
Yeah, I'll ask him.
That would be very cool.
He's been going through the stories, and we talk about them, and it's good stuff to share with anyone, really.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Real quick, we want to do like 30 to 40 minutes, and we're probably an hour and 10 minutes or so, which is also perfect. An hour and 15. It's perfect. We have so much to say. I want to put this out there. So when we started, it was Adriana and myself, and we wanted to talk about stuff. And what I'd like to do is if you're available, Danny, I'd love to invite you every Saturday morning to be with us. I think there's something about the trilogy of what we have going on right here that's really cool.
Thank you. I have my daughter every other weekend, so some weekends I might not be able to. Some weekends I may, but if I can, it would be my honor.
We would love to invite you back.
Yeah,
I love being here with you guys.
Yay.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So, what was that? We got some comments here. So, let me see. Love that. Find your who. So, let's wind up real quick. First off, how about Adriana? Tell people how they can get a hold of you. Like,
you can go on my Facebook page, but I also have a group where I go over. It's called the Corporate Code group that it talks about the book that I wrote and the stories that I share with basically becoming a better leader within the corporate world. And I go over techniques and all of that, and you can reach me that way, or you can reach me on my webpage at adriana.company. And I look forward to hearing from anyone. Send me questions. If there's anything that I can do for anybody that's out there listening, reach out to me. Would love to share and interact with you. So thanks for allowing this platform, Martin.
Awesome. Danny, how about you, brother?
I have tons of links that people can go to. The one that probably is the most important is go to Amazon, look up The Mosaic, Daniel Levin. Please buy that book, either Kindle or hardcover. I think it will change your life. I want to know what you believe. The comments that I'm getting are amazing from the people that are reading it. We just need more people to read it. I will put underneath here links of how you can get me. You can go to themosaiconline.com. That's my website that's constantly evolving and developing. It should be more evolved in the next week. Or you can email me, zenseidanny@me.com, ZENSEIDANNY@me.com.
Awesome. And my name is Martin Lopez. I wrote a book called The Curiosity Theory, and you can reach me at thecuriositytheory.com and connect with me in all the different social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, blah, 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 all those different ones. And we're going to be here every Saturday having a conversation just like this. So the conversation that we're going to have next week is definitely around leadership, how to be a great leader. And let's see where it goes. And let's see what guests we have, because I would imagine you have your daughter with you next week, Danny.
I think so. Yeah.
So we're going to do that. It's going to be awesome. So thank you very much for hanging out with us, everybody. And please like and share and comment and do all that. And please connect with Adriana and Danny. We'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
God bless.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Ciao.
Ciao.